Shedeur's jerseys aren't just selling, they're evaporating. Walk into the team store, and it's a graveyard where his merch should be. Try clicking add to cart online, and you're met with that dreaded red text. Out of stock. Even the knockoff sites are struggling to keep up. The man's not just a quarterback. He's a walking, talking economic boom for the franchise. Meanwhile, Gabriel's jerseys are hanging there like unclaimed leftovers at a yard sale. Crisp, untouched, a little too perfect. Because nobody's actually wearing them. There's no rush, no urgency. The racks look the same every day. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. And whether players admit it or not, that kind of thing gets in your head. You can shrug off a bad day in practice. You can ignore an unflattering headline. But when you walk past a team store and see your name collecting dust while the other guy's is flying off the shelves, that's a whole different sting. For Gabriel, that sting is becoming a full-blown bruise. The cameras might not catch it, but behind the scenes, there's a different energy now. Snapping at reporters for asking about jersey sales. Short, clipped answers in interviews. The kind of quiet frustration that makes its way into the locker room without anyone having to say a word. And here's the kicker. This isn't just some vanity metric. In the NFL's current climate, marketability matters. Big time. A player who moves merchandise is a player who moves tickets, who pulls in sponsors, who drives up TV viewership. It's not just nice for the front office, it's profitable. And that means it's a factor in decisions, whether coaches want to admit it or not. Sanders knows it. You can see it in the way he carries himself. There's no arrogance, just this calm awareness that he's operating in two lanes at once. Football and business. Every viral throw at practice? That's not just a highlight. That's a commercial for his brand. Every mic'd up clip where he's smiling, hyping teammates, and calling plays with confidence? That's another reason fans want his name on their back. Gabriel, on the other hand, is caught in the worst possible position. Good enough to be in the conversation, but losing the battle in the one area the fans actually get to vote on with their wallets. And fans aren't subtle about it. Show up to training camp, and the crowd tells you the story. Kids with Sanders jerseys lining the fence, screaming for an autograph. Parents taking photos of their little ones wearing the number before the rookie even plays a real NFL snap. Gabriel supporters? Fewer and quieter. It's not that people dislike him. It's that they're not invested in him. Not in the same way. The Browns front office can pretend this is all secondary, but you know better. You don't just ignore a player whose merch sells out in hours. You don't accidentally give that guy more media appearances, more spotlight, more chances to feed a machine that's putting money in your pocket. And here's where it gets dangerous. Once money's involved, the playing field isn't level anymore. The traditional meritocracy of best player wins starts to blur. Now it's best player, plus best brand, plus best story. And if you've got two guys close in ability, you'd better believe the tiebreaker isn't happening on the field. Gabriel feels that shift. You can tell by the way he's pressing in practice. Ball sailing just a hair too high. Overcompensating on deep throws. Try and create viral moments of his own. It's like watching someone try to force charisma. And the harder you try, the more unnatural it looks. Meanwhile, Shedeur isn't chasing anything. He's letting it come to him. Another clean session with no picks. Another moment of leadership in the huddle. Another clip that the team's social media account pushes out because, frankly, it's too good not to. And every one of those moments is followed by another spike in merch sales. This isn't just a quarterback competition anymore. It's a culture clash. Gabriel represents the old school, put your head down and work model. Sanders represents the modern, fully integrated athlete who's part player, part influencer, part CEO of his own brand. One guy's fighting to win a roster spot, the other's building an empire while doing it. And the Browns are stuck in the middle. On one hand, football people, the lifers, the scouts, the position coaches, will always want the decision to be about tape, about who actually moves the chains. But the suits upstairs? They're looking at charts that have nothing to do with completion percentage and everything to do with revenue streams. When your starting quarterback also happens to be your top-selling product, that's leverage no coach can ignore. And when that product's name sells out in a day while the other guys collects dust, well, the writing's on the wall. The question is how long they can pretend this isn't influencing their thinking, because at some point, they'll have to pick a direction. And if that choice ends up being Sanders, they'll sell it as the football decision. But you'll know, and I'll know, that money talked. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This might not be unique to Cleveland. This might be the way forward in the NFL. As fans get more invested in individual players and teams, as social media makes athletes' global brand from day one, the market's voice is only going to get louder. Shedeur Sanders just happens to be the perfect storm. He's got the talent to justify the hype, the personality to feed it, and the business savvy to turn it into something tangible. Gabriel's caught in a fight he didn't sign up for and probably can't win. The scoreboard in this battle isn't on the field. It's in the pro shop. And right now, Sanders is blowing him out. Once jersey sales became the unofficial scoreboard, the tension inside the facility shifted from a low hum to something you could actually feel in the air. You'd walk into the locker room and see the separation without anyone saying a word. Sanders at one end, surrounded by rookies, wideouts, and defensive backs who love being around him. Gabriel at the other, mostly keeping to himself, headphones in, maybe one or two quiet conversations with the linemen. It's not open hostility. It's worse than that. It's distance. In a football locker room, silence can say more than yelling ever could. And the silence around Gabriel started getting louder. The media doesn't help. Every time Sanders throws a good ball in practice, it's clipped, captioned, and shared across every platform before the session even ends. Gabriel might have a decent day, but it's lucky to get a 3-second mention in a post-practice recap. And players see that. They see who's trending, who's getting calls from production crews, who's got camera guys tailing them before walk-throughs. It changes the way people interact. Receivers who are fighting for a roster spot are starting to run crisper routes for Sanders. Not because they dislike Gabriel, but because they know a highlight from Sanders will get seen. And in camp, visibility is currency. Sponsors notice too. A few of the Browns' smaller local partners have started reaching out to Sanders' team directly, asking to feature him in ads without even bothering to route it through the franchise first. That's where things get tricky, when marketing is going around the team entirely. In old-school NFL thinking, the player's brand should run through the team's brand. Sanders flipped that script, and now there's a new question. What happens when your quarterback star power is bigger than your logo? Behind closed doors, the coaching staff is getting hit with pressure from both directions. Position coaches keep pushing that practice performance should be the main factor. But upstairs, the execs are asking subtle questions like, what's the quarterback rotation looking like for the televised preseason game? Translation: put the guy people are tuning in to see on the field more often. Even the reps in practice are getting political. You can see the staff try to balance things out, giving Gabriel enough snaps to keep up appearances, but giving Sanders a higher visibility periods. The ones of the first-team receivers, the 2-minute drills, the red zone sets. If you're Gabriel, that's a nightmare. You can't win perception battle when you're not even getting the most watchable reps. And it's not just about what happens in Berea. The road games during preseason tell another story. In away stadiums, kids who have no connection to Cleveland are showing up wearing Sanders jerseys. You don't see that for Gabriel. That's the kind of reach that extends beyond local fan loyalty. That's national draw. For the front office, it's a chess game. The safe move is to keep Gabriel around as a competent backup and hope the media heat cools off. But the bold move, and the one that might actually happen sooner than later, is leaning fully into Sanders as the face of the franchise. Because every week he's in the news, every time he trends online, the Browns' brand benefits, even if it means bruising a few egos in the process. And trust me, egos are already bruising. You can see it in Gabriel's body language. He's taking more risks in practice, the kind of throws you make when you're trying to force a viral moment instead of just playing the game. Problem is, forcing it usually leads to mistakes, and mistakes lead to more criticism, which leads to more frustration. The veterans in the room have seen this before. They know when a guy is in his head. The problem is, In the NFL, no one's going to stop and help you out of that spiral, especially the guy competing for your spot is lighting it up both on and off the field. Meanwhile, Sanders keeps his messaging tight. Every interview is polished but authentic. Every comment to reporters is just enough to be quotable without crossing the line into arrogance. That's the part people miss. It's not just that he's popular, it's that he's controlling the narrative in a way Gabriel can't. And that's why this quarterback battle is no longer just a camp storyline. It's become a case study in how modern athletes win jobs. It's not about stat sheets alone. It's about momentum, the kind that's built on highlights, storylines, marketability, and public sentiment. If Sanders keeps stacking good practices with this kind of outside-the-lines dominance, it won't matter how solid Gabriel is on the field. The court of public opinion will have already made its decision, and the front office will follow. Not because they're pushovers, but because in today's NFL, ignoring the money is ignoring the game. The truth? This isn't just Sanders versus Gabriel. It's old guard versus new era. Gabriel is playing for the job the way it's always been played. Sanders is playing for the job the way it will be played from now on. What people forget is that NFL teams are more than just rosters and playbooks. They're ecosystems, delicate, political, and often dictated by currents you don't see on Sunday broadcasts. And right now, those currents inside the Browns facility are swirling around one central reality. Shedeur Sanders isn't just outperforming Dillon Gabriel. He's outperforming the Browns' ability to control him. When a player's personal momentum is this strong, it creates ripple effects that seep into every layer of the organization. In the equipment room, for example, Sanders' locker is practically a satellite warehouse for custom cleats, visors, and gloves, many of them from personal sponsorships that have nothing to do with the team's official partners. That's already rubbing up against corporate agreements. The Browns have deals with certain brands, but when their hottest quarterback is seen warming up in gear from a competitor, someone in marketing is taking a phone call they don't want to have. The PR team is feeling it too. Every week, they have to decide whether to feature Sanders more prominently on the team's official channels, which drives engagement but risks making Gabriel irrelevant. And here's the thing. Once a player disappears from the official feed, the public starts to assume he's irrelevant on the depth chart too. That's a perception death spiral for Gabriel, and the Browns know it. But perception isn't just a fan issue. It's seeping into the meeting rooms. Teammates don't live in a bubble. They see who's being talked about, who's being marketed, who's the first name mentioned when national reporters show up to camp. That seeps into how guys respond in the huddle, how much extra they'll give for a quarterback, and even how vocal they are in film sessions. A QB with buzz gets more buy-in. A QB without it starts to feel like a placeholder. Coaches hate this dynamic. They want performance to dictate respect, not headlines. But here's the ugly truth. Once the business side tips in favor of one guy, football purity goes out the window. Executives start thinking in terms of total value, and total value includes every jersey sold, every season ticket moved, every extra minute of national TV coverage. Right now, in every one of those categories, Sanders is burying Gabriel. This is where the psychological gap starts to widen. Gabriel came into camp thinking this was going to be a straight meritocracy. Throw the best ball, run the best offense, win the job. That's still the official company line, but everyone in the building knows that's not the full equation anymore. The human brain is wired for patterns, and the pattern here is clear. Sanders makes noise. Gabriel doesn't. And in a sport where momentum is everything, silence is deadly. The front office is split into factions over it. One camp insists this is exactly why you can't let marketability dictate football decisions. Because once you start down that road, you're essentially crowdsourcing your roster to public opinion. The other camp counters with the money math. Sanders' presence is already paying for itself. So why delay the inevitable? From a pure numbers standpoint, every snap he takes is both a football decision and a business investment. And that's where the tension inside the building gets personal. For Gabriel, this isn't just about losing a starting job. It's about losing the narrative of his career. If he's benched now, the label sticks. Every team he talks to in the future will have this moment in the file. Lost a QB battle not just on the field, but in the market. That's not an easy tag to shake. Meanwhile, Sanders knows exactly what's happening, and he's leaning into it. He's doing extra community appearances, more mic'd-up practice sessions, and making sure every good throw in camp is captured, edited, and posted within hours. It's not arrogance. It's calculated brand warfare. He's not just building a case for QB1. He's building a platform that makes it politically expensive for the Browns to keep him off the field. Now, here's where it gets even more complicated. Team unity. In an ideal world, a locker room rallies behind whoever wins the starting job. But when one guy's rise comes at the expense of another's humiliation, and that humiliation is playing out in real time, both locally and nationally, unity becomes a fragile thing. You can already sense subtle divides forming. Receivers who click with Sanders aren't making the same off-field plans with Gabriel. Defensive players who love Sanders' confidence are showing up in his social media videos. The unspoken message? They've picked a side. And while no one will say it out loud, the coaching staff can feel it too. Every time Sanders takes first-team reps, the energy on the field spikes. Every time Gabriel does, it dips. That's not necessarily about talent. That's about momentum. Momentum is intoxicating. And the Browns are in danger of letting that momentum, not their playbook, dictate the depth chart. On the business side, they're already preparing for the shift. The merch team has doubled their Sanders jersey orders. Ticket sales reps are using his name as a closer on season ticket packages. Corporate sponsors are requesting him for commercials and in-game features. These aren't small signals. They're the kind of moves you make when you know where the franchise's future is heading. But here's the kicker. If the Browns lean into Sanders and he stumbles, the backlash will be brutal. That's the gamble with letting marketability steer the ship. When the hype outpaces the production, the fall is harder, and Gabriel knows this. His best-case scenario now isn't just winning the job outright. It's waiting for Sanders to slip, then being ready to pounce. That's a bitter role for any competitor, but it might be the only card left in his hand. The NFL has seen quarterback controversies before, but this one is different. It's not purely about arm strength, accuracy, or leadership. It's about who owns the spotlight. And in 2025, that spotlight has as much to do with dollars and clicks as it does with touchdowns. Sanders is winning both games right now. Gabriel isn't even in the frame. If nothing changes, this won't just be remembered as a QB battle. It'll be remembered as a year the Browns learned that in the modern NFL, you're not just playing for the scoreboard. You're playing for the storefront. First, let's talk about the media machine and how it's quietly shifted. Normally, a team controls its own narrative by feeding national outlets select quotes, stats, and storylines. But Shedeur, he doesn't wait for the Browns' PR department to frame the story. He is his own PR department. The Browns want to put out a controlled, measured update like, competition remains open. Both quarterbacks are working hard. Meanwhile, Shedeur's Instagram drops a slow-motion clip of him throwing a 50-yard dime with a caption, QB1 loading. And that gets more engagement than the team's official statement. That's not just clever. That's narrative dominance. And when one player controls the emotional temperature of the fan base more than the team does, the balance of power starts to shift in ways owners hate. Gabriel can't counter that because his brand presence is almost non-existent. No mic'd-up training montages. No viral quotes. No personal highlight reels within hours of practice ending. In the public eye, silence reads as irrelevance. Now, let's move to the practice field politics. In most quarterback competitions, coaches give each contender a similar mix of reps with the first and second teams. But what's happening in Cleveland is that even when Gabriel gets a turn with the starters, the rhythm feels off. Receivers who are buzzing with energy for Shedeur snaps are suddenly flat. You start seeing dropped balls, sloppy routes, even miscommunications at the line. It's not that they're sabotaging Gabriel. It's that the chemistry simply isn't there, and everyone can feel it. Here's the dangerous part. Once that energy gap becomes obvious, it feeds back into reps allocation. Coaches start thinking, well, practice runs smoother with Sanders, so let's give him more time. Before Gabriel realizes it, his window to prove himself shrinks. Then there's the corporate layer. You got Browns marketing execs calling local retailers confirm. Yes, the Sanders jerseys are still sold out. You've got ticketing departments pointing to preseason games and saying, notice how attendance spikes when Sanders is announced as a starter? These are business metrics, but in the NFL, they're decision-making fuel. You might think roster decisions are purely football-based, but when one player is driving measurable revenue before he's even taken a regular season snap, the boardroom notices. Now, here's something people outside the locker room don't see: the effect on defensive leadership. Veteran defenders are watching all this play out, and they know momentum when they see it. They also know which quarterback makes their job easier. Sanders' style, quick reads, decisive throws, means fewer stall drives, less time for the defense to be stuck on the field, and more chances to close out games. Defenders remember that. A quarterback who helps them win the time of possession battle will always get their quiet loyalty. On the flip side, Gabriel's game right now feels slower, less confident. That puts more pressure on the defense, and over time, it breeds resentment. It's not dramatic or confrontational, but it's the kind of subtle shift where a safety gives the extra post-practice dap to one QB and barely nod to the other. Players notice that stuff. Let's talk ownership optics for a second. Jimmy Haslam's in a tricky spot. Publicly, he has to support the process and trust the coaches. Privately, he's seeing the spreadsheets, the social media numbers, and the headlines. If he leans too hard toward Sanders publicly, it makes it look like he's dictating football decisions based on merch sales. But if he doesn't embrace Sanders, he risks looking out of touch with his own fan base. And here's where it gets spicy. If Sanders wins the job and delivers on hype, Haslam looks like a visionary for trusting the youth movement. If Gabriel somehow bounces back and wins, Haslam gets to say the system worked and the right guy emerged. But if they stick with Gabriel and he falters, the backlash will be nuclear. The Start Sanders movement will be relentless, and it won't just come from fans. Local media, former players, and even corporate partners will start pushing the narrative. There's also the national ripple effect. Other franchises are watching closely. This is a rare example of a rookie quarterback not just competing for a job, but actively altering the business and cultural gravity of the team before week one. Agents, marketing teams, even college coaches are studying this as a modern blueprint for how to enter the NFL with leverage. Because let's be real, Shedeur is doing something that's usually only possible after you've made a Pro Bowl. And while all this is happening, Gabriel is living through something every quarterback fears: losing the room. Once you lose the room, it's not impossible to get it back, but it's a climb. You have to deliver something so undeniable, so headline-worthy, that it forces people to reconsider you. Right now, Gabriel hasn't had that moment. And with every Sanders practice highlight that goes viral, that hill gets steeper. The Browns coaching staff knows they're standing on a knife's edge. One wrong move, whether that's rushing Sanders into the starting role or giving Gabriel too long a leash, could fracture the locker room and alienate part of the fan base. But here's the truth no one in the building will say out loud. They're already closer to that fracture than they'd like to admit. Because in 2025, quarterback competitions aren't just decided in practice. They're decided in comment sections, jersey pre-orders, and YouTube highlight edits. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is dominating all those fields.